Hello, everybody. Oh, I don't know if people can see Robin or even hear Robin. He doesn't appear to be there. Ah, this is what happens when we don't set up stuff in advance. Why aren't you there, Robin? Why are you not there? I'm just put a quick thing of Robin smiling. This is all right. Let me quickly work my magic here and try and work out why you're not showing, because I didn't hide you. I don't think they can hear or see you at the minute. Oh eck, mother. Right, let's sort this out. Which one are you meant to be? Lost in the warp. Let me quickly sort that one out. Is there a Robin? There is a Robin!
Oh, hello,
I'm not
everyone.
sure. I literally haven't changed any of those settings.
Okay, I thought for a moment I'd been forsaken.
Hey!
See what I did there?
We're all back online. Hello, everybody. Oh, well, that was a bit of a cock-up to start with. I'm not sure why that didn't do that, because I have literally not changed any of the settings since we chatted 2 days ago. But there we go. Such is technology.
Computers, eh?
Love them. Love them, love them. My mother-in-law's literally been trying to fit one of those Wi-Fi extender things in her house. Obviously, I can't be there to help because social distancing. So I'm getting messages like every 5 minutes. It's not working. I don't know. I don't do Netgear products. I'm not customer support. Leave me alone. But we're not here to talk about that.
We could do.
Well, we can. Yeah, I mean, get off my chest.
Hello, Monty Tuck.
Yes, Reflex of the Hunter gone.
Yeah, my poor Hrothgorn. Was a bit broken though, wasn't it?
Was a bit broken. I'm a little annoyed by it because it's I've said this on our Patreon chats already. It kind of feels a bit like, they introduce a 3-fighter warband and it kind of breaks magic a bit. They introduce a fighter in a warband that makes everybody a quarry, and it kind of breaks the quarry hunter mechanics. You introduce a fighter like Molliger has 2 charges and it kind of breaks the whole game really in some ways with some of the upgrades and stuff, and so that they do this and then they have to suddenly backtrack on it all, and you're like, oh, I was looking forward to trying to use that and now I can't.
Yeah, and I think with the Hunter's reflexes as well, it's a little bit disappointing because it was quite an obvious interaction.
Yeah.
With the end of activation reactions.
Yeah.
That's going to basically interrupt it every time for Hrothgorn, and it's a shame. I mean, you could play around it a little bit because you had to be there to move closer, didn't they? But they couldn't move closer than you. But it was too, especially for people, because I mean, obviously Pete and I are pretty. What's the word?
Stupid.
Crap. And so we normally forget to use it and forget to interrupt those important interactions. But in the hands of somebody good, who'll just use it for the hell of it, just to stop people.
If you have to be in a man or a Tom or someone like that, you're probably going to draw Mr. Carlin or something like that. You're going to use that to really mess your opponent up, aren't you? And I think we played a game where you had that on Hrothgorn, and I was playing Reavers, and we worked out afterwards there was probably about 3 or 4 of my cards that you could have completely stuffed with Hrothgorn all the time, and it kind of highlights it a bit. And I think it maybe exposed the fact that there's not enough cross warband playtesting going on.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Mr. Marlowe, you ask us if we've got the link to the latest restrictions. They should be in the description.
He's just realised that they are in the description.
There you go. They're in the description. Ask and you shall find.
Didn't realise that you can only react once per turn until today. Well,
no.
It's not once per turn. It's more subtle than that. But that you can only do it once per window. And that one shares a lot of windows with a lot of things.
yeah. And I think it was because
Rippers.
Yes, definitely Rippers. And I think you mentioned this before, because they made the end of an action and the end of an activation the same window.
Yeah.
That made that much more powerful. Whereas if you had an end of activation window and an end of activation window, if you had those separate, then you would free up a lot more of those reactions to happen sort of one after the other.
Yeah, I don't know whether that would have caused other problems.
Possibly.
We're not playing that way, so I don't know. I was trying to think about it today. I still feel like they could have got rid of a lot of issues with that. But this is an effective way. It's not such a brilliant card that you think. Well, I mean, people were only using it for that and a little bit of positional play, I guess. But so I don't think it'll be missed. Not like Ready for Action. R.I.P. R.I.P. RFA.
LOL. WTF? Yeah, I think it's it just kind of, to me, especially with some of the other cards, which we'll cover in a moment, that they've made restricted, it kind of puts the nail in the coffin for the whole Hunter-Quarry game, as far as I can see now.
Well,
There's not
this
much
whole
point.
thing does. I mean, that card, not so much.
Not just that card, no, but
but
that in combination.
the way they've ruled the quarry interaction, which I guess we can move on to now, which is that's in the Errata, is it? In the Errata?
It's not in the Errata, but we can cover the Errata first, because that's
Okay,
really
fine.
quick, and it has obviously the biggest change in the game, which is when Fecula inspires, she now has a crown. I mean, that was obviously a massive.
Well, I mean,
game
nobody
changer
saw
for
that coming. I mean, it blew me away that she actually was the leader when inspired as well as when not inspired.
I
I
can't.
mean, yeah.
I can't imagine that anybody was actually saying, "Oh no, she hasn't got the crown, so she's obviously not the leader anymore." I can't believe anybody ever said that in a legitimate game, but at least it clears that one up. It had to be done, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. I think I'd have broken the person's crown if I'd done that.
But the bigger one, obviously, is the fact that Varclav has been neutered.
He has. Can you neuter somebody who hasn't got any private parts?
Interesting. I'm
Oh,
not
has
sure.
he
I want
got
to find
them?
out.
He might have them under the robe. He's not a skeleton, is he?
That's true. That's true. He's a spooky.
Interesting discussion. I hadn't expected the conversation to go this way.
Yes, can you circumcise a ghost? I don't know. So yes, Varclav can now only use his pushy, spooky ability once per round, which is quite a big change.
That is a massive, massive change, and in line with other abilities of that nature. So, I mean, I think it was needed.
Yes.
I think it was needed.
Because isn't it Thundrix? Doesn't his farty gas one? Is that only after he has an activation, which is generally going to be like once a round, because it's usually a charge or something like that, or a move, and then.
I can't remember. Yeah. It's a reaction, though, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's much more restricted in when it's going to happen.
Presumably, it was a reaction you could stop with Hunter's reflexes. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, could be. So I think that definitely now makes the spookies, the thorns, just not all encompassingly powerful. I mean, you can still use it at the end of a round to jump on 3 objectives with very little hassle, or at the beginning of a round, shove all of your people away and then just be out of charge range for almost a whole round with very little effort. So it doesn't completely declaw them, I think, but it does mean you've got to think a bit more about how you use them.
Well, it means that your opponent has got a chance. Really, it depends what sort of thorns you're playing. But if you're playing objective-based thorns, then it's very hard to disrupt, because especially if you're going first. If you're going first, it's very hard to disrupt, because the last whatever you do, pretty much the last activation is going to be push for as many chain rafts onto hexes as objective hexes as possible. So I think it was needed.
Yeah.
In some ways, I don't think that's the most powerful aspect of the thorns, but I haven't played the thorns very much, so maybe I'm talking at my bottom there. But they've still got some really. I mean, I think the not being done by lethal hexes is really important, and they've got kind of like, they have restricted one now, haven't they? But we'll come on to that.
Yes.
They have got the sudden appearance type cards as well, which are really make them really strong.
Yep.
It'd be interesting to see this one, how the Warhammer Underworld Online guys play it. I assume it's going to stay the same for them at the moment, because I don't think the thorns are particularly overpowered in that meta.
I definitely agree. I think right now the thorns aren't the easy win sort of warband on Warhammer Underworlds Online, so I don't see them changing it anytime soon, as they've only just added them in. I think we'll be way into Nightvault and Beastgrave territory before they possibly follow GW's lead on that one, maybe.
Yeah, I would think so. We have a quick question from Valentin, which is WTF is a do-over. That's basically a mulligan when you mulligan your hand. It's not called a do-over in the rules at all, so it's a bit of an choice of word. And I'm not doing over my hand, I'm mulliganing it, so I'm not going to count that rule.
Yeah, I'm not sure why they call it a do-over in there. It's not that at all. Because I thought there was like this rule about do-over where you just both go, let's shuffle all our cards back in and then go again or something. But I was like, what's this? But it just means mulliganing. So
yeah.
And again, to me, it feels like, I think a lot of people probably never paid much attention to that part of the game unless you were really, really, really good at guessing or looking at what your opponent's got in, and especially only in like best of 3 scenarios. but I don't think most people probably ever cared that much if they said, I'm going to get rid of my cards, and the other person said, yeah, I'm going to get rid of mine too. And there was probably none of that, well, what have you got before I decide kind of thing. It was probably just a, I'm doing it, also am I doing it kind of thing.
I'm guessing people try to game the system. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's never really. I mean, to be honest, you don't need that sort of advantage against me. But I don't think it's ever come up in any games I've played against, or certainly against you, but against any competitive games.
If people did it against us, they'd be like, oh, you're getting rid of those cards. So that means you must have these kind of cards left. Like, I don't know. Don't know what's in there. Couldn't tell you. I can't tell you because I don't know. So we've got a couple more questions. Or Mr. Marlowe's also said, restricting combination strikes and opening gambit is a great balance, he thinks, more in line with power of the card. I agree.
So should we move on to the restricted cards just generally, because we've kind of covered Varclav now. I mean, just to reiterate, I think that's going to be big for the Thorns, and I think it's a welcome change, makes them a little bit less strong.
Yes, I think it doesn't necessarily new to them so much as just make them more in line with a lot of other warband power levels. They don't have.
I think so. I mean, it's ridiculous that you've always talked about it before, but that versus the Warden's ability. It's arguably better than the Warden's ability because they don't get move tokens. But the Warden could he only do it? Well, no, he couldn't only do it once, but he could only do it once to the same chamber, to the same.
Once to the same. Yeah, that was the upside. You could do it to any of your skeletons, and they just moved. So I think it brings them back more in line now. I definitely think that puts them both on more of a level pegging.
Yes, so the Forsaken and restricted card, the big thing here, we've touched on Hunter's Reflexes, but the big thing here is that they are now restricting faction-specific cards. Yeah. Which I think is probably overdue, particularly for Stormsides, although Stormsides aren't the force they were, but also, of course, the Grimwatch as well.
It does feel maybe like a lot of these are maybe 2 to 3 months late in arriving, but better late than never.
Yes, I think so. I mean, it's a funny time, isn't it, for the game? I don't know whether they'd have come quicker if there were more tournaments being played, because we'd have had at least 2 big American tournaments, I think, and I think there was Warhammer Fest was cancelled as well, wasn't it? Yeah. So I think there were. I don't know if there wasn't Clash of Warhammer Fest. I can't remember now, but there were various things that have been cancelled, and maybe this would have come sooner in those circumstances. But I think
at the same time, as we haven't had that much in the way of competitive play, it doesn't matter quite so much that they haven't updated the competitive play far list, I guess.
No. I mean, Andrew just said it here. He was pretty certain they would never restrict faction cards. And it looks like they changed their mind. I mean, they pretty much did say that at the first Grand Clash we went to. Yeah. It wasn't the first Grand Clash, but they did say, we're not going to do that. And I think I remember an article on Warhammer Community saying that they wouldn't do it. But I think, and I always thought it was an odd decision at the time. I'm not going to say, I told you so, Games Workshop, because that would be rubbish. But I did think, well, actually, if you've got a suspected power imbalance, then the best way to do it is to get them through their individual, their specialised things, because if you're new to all the universal things, you tend to, apart from you've got different play styles, you tend to new to everybody. So if you take out, I can't think of an example now, but if you take out one card that's good for the Grimwatch, it's also good for everybody else. Or the Eyes of the Nine is the classic one. When they nerfed the spell casting for Curse Breakers, it did over Eyes of the Nine as well. Really didn't need it. So I think it's a really good step, and I think taking out things like In the Name of the King and Shifting Madness, or not taking them out, but restricting them. Because that's all part of that glory print. And suddenly, you could still print them, but that would be, if you took Temporary Victory as well, that's all your restricted card slots done.
Yeah, and there's definitely even more than that you'd want to take along with that as well. So because they can't have things like Scrum, stuff like that. So it definitely restricts them a lot more. So I guess we'll run through. We've already covered Hunter's Reflexes, which, like we say, absolutely, I wouldn't say neuters Hrothgorn, but it definitely takes him down a couple of pegs. I'm a little sad to see that it's been completely forsaken, but I think because of the way they've sort of broken the Hunter-Quarry mechanic a bit, and it's just a Hrothgorn thing now, really, it makes sense to forsaken it.
I think so. I mean, all of the cards now, pretty much, that are forsaken are because the rules are broken rather than the card itself, if that makes sense. That one in some ways less so.
Yeah.
But I think it's just I don't think it's that good a card, except for its broken rules interaction. So I think the fact that it's been taken out won't really affect things very much. I mean, it's going to make Hrothgorn less powerful, but other than that, it's not going to make much difference.
Valentin asks what's meant by line of sight only touching the edge of an incomplete hex. If you imagine, Valentin, where you've got the hexes on the side of the board, where you have a whole hex, a half hex, and a whole hex. If you have two people standing on those whole hexes right at the edge of the board, the line of sight touches the edge of a half hex, which is an incomplete hex, and in those situations you can still attack the opposition. But if that half hex was a blocked hex, you wouldn't be able to attack that person.
Yeah, or if
they've always been a bit. It's always been a bit confusing, that rule. Hopefully we clear it. We kind of covered it in our how to play guide, which is in the description for anybody who hasn't played the game very much and isn't really sure on that. We do cover it in one of those videos, so hopefully that's of help.
Yeah, I don't think that hasn't changed anything really, has it? Maybe they just reworded it to make it a bit clearer.
Yeah, I think that was it was already in the rules, that one, but it was just repeating themselves for
there are a couple of things I've been reading. I think, well, I'm sure that's how it used to be, but I think they've just tightened up the wording.
I think it's just to make it, just to reiterate the point for people. So what other objective cards have we got that are now restricted? Well, we've got combination strikes and we've got opening gambit.
Yeah, but not solid gains. Interestingly,
I guess solid gains is a bit harder to score, because if you scored combination strike, you've got to score 2 objectives, which is isn't too hard if you've got a lot of instant scores. And if you've got opening gambit, that's just score a other objective. But at least with the one you just said, which I've already forgotten, solid gains, you've got to score 3 glory, haven't you? So that could theoretically be more tricky. Do you have to score those in the preceding action phase as well?
No, I don't think you do. I think it's in this round. I think.
See if I can find it.
But I think you can score it in the round. It's an interesting one. I mean, I wonder why they didn't do solid gains. I wouldn't have been sorry to see it on here, although I think nobody would have taken it, because you wouldn't of the 3, you wouldn't take it over these 2, and maybe that's the sole reason why it's not been restricted.
Yeah,
it will basically remove it from the game forever, because you wouldn't pick it. You wouldn't pick solid gains over opening gambit ever.
No, and I think that's why they're in the rank of what's easier. Opening gambit's always slightly further up there in terms of ease, and combination strikes obviously 2 glory, and both of those are just giving you glory for scoring glory. So I think we're both glad to see the back of those, and they will.
Yeah, they were the kind of things when they first came out. You think, oh, that's quite interesting. Well, that means I can try and build to score those. That's quite a nice thing to do. But I think they made scoring certain objectives, so easy, and are not restricted now. But they just became too easy to score.
Yeah,
a bit like a superior tactician.
Yeah, a bit like that. And Valentin has pointed out as well that maybe it's because Gambit doubles your glory, 1 glory for 1 glory, and solid gains only adds 33%.
That's true.
3, so less return there. So it could be that.
Is a lot less return. That is a good point.
And then we move on to the power cards, our restricted power cards, which we've got another 7 have been added to the list.
Yeah, quite a lot.
So there's Blazing Souls. I think that's a given. I don't think that's a bad one to have on there, because being able to inspire somebody, especially if you're going for a 1-fighter warband. This
is one of those cards that I feel falls a bit into the trap that we were talking about with Eyes of the Nine versus Curse Breakers. This card is immense for Hrothgorn and Moloch. But if you're playing the Condemners, it's good, but it's also quite vital, I think, because they're so hard to inspire with any. So I think that's one of those ones where I'm looking and thinking, oh, that's a bit of a shame, because I have got my quite nice Condemners deck that I've been running. I haven't run it for a while, but I was enjoying that. And Blazing Soul was an integral part of it, especially when you're looking forward. You're thinking, well, Regal Vision's going to drop, and then suddenly you're looking at that and thinking, well, the only way to consistently to inspire one of those guys is to use Blazing Soul. Now, you could argue about that about other inspire conditions, but I don't think inspiring one one Condemnor is anywhere near as powerful as inspiring one Hrothgorn.
or one Mollog. Yeah, I
Yeah.
wonder if it's because it stopped you from being uninspirable. That was
Or
too
possibly, yeah, so
far,
it
kind
has
of
got
thing.
that added thing, which it didn't need.
No,
It's funny that they put that little bit in there. I wonder if they regret that. It didn't need that extra twist because
Could,
actually people very rarely run uninspired things anyway. But I think you're even less likely to with that game in the game. Cryptic Companion, moving on, is definitely a good one to be got rid of.
I don't know. I mean, you've got to be on an objective, which isn't the easiest thing to achieve, especially with a lot of the warbands that might. I guess this is for your Grimwatch warbands where they've got bodies everywhere and they can just throw someone on it and leave them. So,
Yeah,
but again, it's like it wasn't a bad one for like your smaller fighter warbands like your Wormspat who couldn't print glories easily. And now they can't. It's like you said. It's kicking even the weaker warbands in the teeth to try and neuter the more powerful warbands.
yeah, I think so. But I mean, Wormspat, okay, they have got. I know. It's used a lot in the build that's very successful, but they're not the most likely candidates for it, really, are they? Because it's reasonably easy to stop them from scoring it, whereas it's almost impossible to stop a Horde warband scoring it, using it.
True. What else we got? We've got Frenzied Search. I mean, I don't know why that one's restricted. I like that one because you've got to get rid of a card. So there's always that. I've got to get rid of something to use this, and you nearly always end up in that situation where you've got a handful of cards you don't want to get rid of any of them.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure I know why they've got rid of that one, unless it's just this. It's in every deck, but they've built the game in such a way that people want to get through their cards quicker.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because then it just makes decks more efficient. So the more efficient warbands are better, if you see what I mean. So it makes the Grimwatch even more efficient. But I'm not sure. I mean, I like it as a card. Although funny enough, I've kind of stopped playing it because of recently I've been playing warbands which don't want to be on objectives.
Yeah.
So I haven't played it for a while. I've just been playing 10 and 10, or occasionally including Unnatural Truce. What I do think is a shame for, I think playing to the end is not a straightforward tactic and not without risk, and that's now going to be less likely, I think, because for those who don't know, to the end is the one where you've used all your power cards up at the end of the game.
Your whole power deck.
You get to glory. I'm not sure I would use a restricted card slot for that. I think I'd be looking for alternative to glory objectives. I think.
Yeah, definitely. The next card they got rid of was Nightmare in the Shadows. It's a second distraction. I mean,
could see that coming. Distraction isn't restricted, is it? Which is interesting.
No, it's not.
But yeah, you could see that coming, couldn't you? That because it's very powerful, and
it can completely balls up an objective grabbing warband if you've got distraction and you've got Nightmare in the Shadows. Although I still feel that Nightmare in the Shadows was banal enough that it wasn't necessary for a restricted card. But then I don't play many tournaments, so I don't know.
No, maybe the new cards that are coming, they've got like Bad Dream in the Darkness coming out, something like that, and they thought, oh god, we better restrict this one quick. We're going to bring out an entirely identical version of it.
Yeah, like they did with the Power Unbound cards.
Exactly.
And then they put Restless Prize on there. Now, I'm not sure about this one.
Mischievous Spirits.
Not Mischievous Spirits, no, but
Yeah.
Restless Prize, and I always. This is the other card I'm not 100% sure on, along with Frenzied Search, in that, I mean, yeah, it's useful for objective warbands, but it's also useful for non-objective warbands when you have the card where you have to have an objective on both sides of the board, or when you've got the one where you have to be on an objective in your opponent's half. This was really handy for those kind of situations, and it didn't just benefit objective hugging warbands; it benefited everybody, or it felt like that.
Well, it did, but I think this is to do with its ubiquity. That's why this has been put on here. But I think because it is in every deck, pretty much.
True.
True. Unless you really, really don't care. But even if you really, really don't care about objectives, it's quite often in there anyway because it can screw up your opponent. Although I think Mischievous Spirits is better for that.
Because it's much harder to counter than anything else.
Yeah, I think it's a shame that it's gone. Cause again, I quite liked it, but I can see why they've got rid of it. We have got a quick question about faction-specific distractions. Could they be restricted? I think, somebody's just asked. Yuna's just answered it anyway. Yeah, they could, technically, because they have opened up
Yeah.
But I don't know if they will. I think they might, if a warband suddenly becomes particularly powerful because it's got the extra distraction, they might do it. I don't know. I don't know who's got their own.
Well, Skellies have one. Skaven have one. Dwarves, the chosen axes.
Dwarves have got one of that's either, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's even better.
It's even better.
But nobody's going to nerf the chosen axes at this point. Condemners have got one.
Yeah, there might be another one. There's a Grimwatch version which pushes someone 2 hexes away from one of your own fighters, I think it is. So
they have to be adjacent though.
Oh, they might do. Yeah,
it's
they
a little
might
bit
do.
trickier.
Yeah.
Rippers have one. Do Rippers have one? I'm not sure. Condemners have got one where you can move anybody adjacent as well. So they've got distraction and they've got one. It moves either one of your adjacent fighters, one of your neighbours' adjacent fighters, which is quite good. Neighbours, opponents.
Hello.
And I'm going to smash him in the face now. That'll teach you to borrow the lawnmower and not clean it up afterwards.
Play music loudly on a Sunday morning. Next card we got on there is Survival Instinct.
Survival Instincts, yes.
I mean, yeah, it's not a bad card to be eternally on guard. I mean, that's pretty much it, isn't it? You're eternally on guard, which is a plus. And you have no downside at all, so it was a bit good.
You're a quarry, which isn't really a downside.
No one gives a shit about anymore, even less. So that kind of makes sense.
This was the nail in the coffin. If we've had some discussions this week about triumphant hunt and persistence of quarries and things like that, and this has all been answered now, really, because if it's in the FAQ, but for Hrothgorn and Valric, when she makes people a quarry, if they're dead, the people they were making quarries are no longer quarries, but they are. I'll rephrase that. If Hrothgorn or Valric are dead, they're no longer quarry. Their quarry thing is no longer switched on, so everything stops being a quarry.
Yeah.
But if the quarries die, they stay as quarries. So you could still score triumphant hunt in those circumstances, but
if you were
for everybody else, there isn't any way of doing it. I don't think if we ordered that way for that card marked. The ploy marked, which we'd be using to make people quarries, isn't going to count. Isn't going to count.
I had 2 or 3.
I think that's a shame.
Yeah, I think it just kills off the whole Hunter-Quarry interaction. I don't think anyone's going to bother with that at all. And that objective, I think, is dead in the water now, unless you're Hrothgorn, really. That's a bit of a shame, like you say, that they've got rid of that whole aspect.
Well, it just made. I mean, we had quite good fun making those decks. I don't know whether they're that good, whether they stood up very well in over tournament play, but we had good fun. We had some of our best games. That Godsword Hunt versus the Despoilers using those.
Some of our longest games, I think.
But they made the Godsword Hunt vaguely viable.
Yeah.
But without it, it's not worth it. It's not worth relying on somebody taking the restricted survival instincts to score it.
And Mr. Forthmoz says that he's disappointed about restricting banned cards. It feels like it's destroying their individuality, and I kind of see a point, but I think overall it's for the good of the game, because I think the cards they banned on the warbands they banned them on were a lot better than cards that other people had access to, especially the Grimwatch objectives. They are only, for the most part, objectives apart from, I think, one card. So I don't mind that as much as they're only objectives right now. I mean, I agree. I think I kind of say again. I do see where he's coming from, but I mean, things like In the Name of the King, it doesn't make the Grimwatch any more individual, because there's the same card for everybody can take as a universal. And I did like Shifting Madness as a concept, but it was just too easy to score. Most of the time, you could score that quite easily, because it was either like turn 1, 2, or 3 if you got it, and you could just hang on to it if it was too early. And generally with the numbers as well, unless you were getting absolutely smashed, it was generally a fairly easy run onto an objective within instance. It would have been better if it was at the end of a round. Was it the end of a round or the end of an activation?
The end of an activation.
Yeah, I mean, it was too good then. If it had been the end of a round, I think it would have been.
Yeah, I'm not sure anybody would have necessarily taken it then.
No,
but it would have just been like a slightly easier to score hold objective card.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, again, if it was in like a Wormspat deck or a Ripper's deck, more people were taking it.
Yeah, definitely, because it would be much harder to achieve.
Yeah,
But Grimwatch, they're like, well, we've got all the objectives anyway, so...
yeah, and especially with cards like Mischievous Spirits or Restless Prize, it's just so easy to pick up.
Definitely. And then the last card we got in there is Trophy Belt, which I'm a little bit surprised on. Because
And Trophy Belt is is it
Game
Tome of
1
Offerings
glory.
Hunters?
Yeah, basically.
Is it the one where you have to be adjacent to them? Because I realise
Yeah.
there's Trophy Hunter as well. I get confused, but you have to be adjacent, so it's not as good as Tome of Offerings.
Not quite as good as Tome of Offerings. And the glory you gain is spent unless they are a quarry, in which case it's unspent. But I mean, it had enough restrictions on it, and the fact it's a hunter card, that I didn't think it was that big a deal. But I mean, maybe it's got a lot of play with like Wrathgorn, and it's a man's fault for putting it in that Wild Hunt deck, I think.
Yeah, I mean Wrathgorn and Skaeth can rip the glory, can't they? I suppose. I mean, it's a bit of it's a bit of an aggro check, really.
Yeah.
But then people, I think, early builds of the Grimwatch that were devastating, they had that kind of thing in it too, because they could. Maybe it was Tome of Offerings, but once you tooled them up, once you printed your glory in the first round and then added that on. Although I don't know how many hunters they had. I can't remember, so I might be talking out my bottom there again.
They had 3 or 4.
I personally don't really like, I suppose on the back of Combination Strike, I don't really like cards that give you glory for doing what you were already doing anyway.
True. But at least with things like that, you had to roll dice. You still had to hit.
There is risk involved, as people see our forthcoming video will discover.
Yes,
there is risk involved. You have to put yourself in harm's way as well. Mostly.
Yeah, that is true. Miss Forthmoss follows up saying players will then just pick, because Valentin says that it doesn't stop them being unique. They can still take those cards, obviously, because they're only restricted. They just can't take other cards. And Mr. Forthmoss says players will then pick more powerful and not yet restricted cards. But that's always the race, really, is they restrict a bunch of cards. So your top 30 cards are now restricted. So people move on to the next 30, and then they end up getting restricted, or they cycle out, and then we get a whole new bunch. And it's just, that's how the game keeps going.
Yeah, I mean that is true. It's just there's now going to be like a jostling of position as the top players work out what the next 30 best cards are, or however they're restricted today. They're restricted about 12, 10 maybe. So people will find out what the best 12 replacements are, and away we go again. But of course, in the not too distant future, quite a lot of them will be all rotated out anyway, which will make things interesting.
That is true.
Yeah, we've got a few comments here from Just Mostin. Skaeth can rip glory, not when I play them. As our recent Skaeth deck?
I don't know if our Skaeth versus Skelly deck has gone out yet. I don't think it has.
I played a version of Aman's Skaeth deck. And I don't want to give it away, but if you've got Trophy Belt and Tome of Offerings on him, and you roll into when he's got 2 or 3 people surrounding him, you can score a lot of glory at once.
Yep. But we've also found the converse.
Attacks and not score any. But
Craig and MK both coming online. Hello, thanks for joining us. I know it's confusing. It's not Tuesday, it is Thursday, and MK says that YouTube says we're on in 8 hours. I don't know what YouTube's on, because I noticed that when I was looking at it earlier. I knew the time was set for 9 PM. I double checked it, and yet it was still saying they're on in 12 hours. No, we're not. But yeah, sorry. There you go. Don't know what to tell you. So those are all of the restricted power cards and objective cards. Then we come on to the restricted Warband specific cards. And I think for the most part, a lot of them aren't surprising to see in this list, if I'm honest. No. You've got In the Name of the King and Shifting Madness for Grimwatch, which, I mean, it's interesting, or it's not really. I guess it kind of highlights the disparity between the two. It's not interesting at all. I don't know what I'm talking shit. I guess it highlights the fact that Grimwatch is seen as a very easy, or at least a very good warband to play, and the Despoilers aren't, because the Despoilers have Despoilers in their deck, and that's not restricted. I think it's because they need all the help they can get.
Yeah, but that's it. But also, it's slightly counter to the way they play, isn't it?
Yeah.
Whereas the Grimwatch, it isn't counter to the way they play. It is the way they play, and that's the different thing. I mean, for an example, is I played Godsworn Hunt, who play very like the Despoilers, I played them with Temporary Victory. And it's really hard to score because on the one hand, unless you get it first turn, on the one hand you want to be charging in, and if you don't, you'll die. So you need to be charging in missiles again and again. And there isn't time to get on the objectives, and it's kind of the same for the Despoilers. Once you're up and running, Pete, I mean, you've got more experience with this than maybe once you're up and running, you kind of want to be attacking, and then you have to start not caring where the objectives are.
Yep, definitely, and yeah, especially with Despoilers, you just want to start arming your guys up and firing them off like missiles. And as Nick points out as well, Despoilers can't resurrect, and at best they have one block. That's like their best, unless you give them upgrade cards. Then,
that's very true. So, and then Una, certainly he says that he sort of hopes they don't make the mistake of creating duplicates of powerful cards as Warband and Universals anymore. I agree with that. I don't think there's been a few problems with that, with cards that have restricted. They've like Awakened Weapon. I mean, it's not really, there wasn't so much a problem, but there are people who have their own faction-specific Awakened Weapon that's not so powerful as in the Name of the King. But it always feels a bit. I'm not sure what the word is. I don't like it when you've got your new faction-specific card. It's just a reprint of a.
Yeah, you kind of feel a bit cheated.
Faction-specific supremacy is another. Just stop doing that.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't think anybody particularly takes it. But
it was great that they gave it to the Wormspat. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Brilliant card to give them.
Fight is a viable build there, Pete.
What was the next one?
It's risky in that you can't do it, but it's.
Well, you're okay as long as you get 3 objectives in your half, and your opponent hasn't got any fast-moving troops or distractions. You're fine.
Or cards, yeah.
Or nuance on how to play the game, and then you're okay. It's groovy. The next card, the next Warband. Sorry, yes. So there's In the Name of the King there. We've also got Shifting Madness, which is obviously the stand on 1, 2, or 3 objective, which was pretty easy, and because it was instant score, I think if it was an end phase one, possibly no one would take it, but at least then it wouldn't be on the restricted list. After that, we've got Lady Harrow with 1 will.
I can't remember what 1 will is.
1 will score 1 will.
Is that the
1 will is if you're standing on 1 odd and 1 even objective.
Okay.
It's. I mean, I don't think it's the worst card in the world.
No, I think he's one of those ones where they can not interact with you at all and score glory, which I think GW are trying to cut down on.
True, but you do have those situations where you've only got odd numbered objectives in your half, or only even numbered objectives, or your opponent's longboarded you and the objectives are miles away and stuff like that. And it's not the easiest card in the world. It's only 1 glory.
Yeah,
it kind of feels a bit harsh on them.
It's Surge though, isn't it?
It is Surge, yeah. So that maybe that's the thing, really.
Although they haven't got rid of they haven't restricted reflection, swift capture. I guess it's slightly easier to score on swift capture because you could have you're likely to have an odd and even in your half.
Yeah, that is true. We've got some more comments going on, which are quite interesting. Craig says he'll still be running both In the Name of the King and Temporary Victory, but there is a special place in hell for players like him. I mean, you said it, Craig. I'm just going to leave that one there.
I think that's reasonable because but you've had to give up something else. Like I know, again, I'm going back a couple of iterations of the game, but I know that people were running those 2, and then they were running Tome of Offering. So you'd score your multiple glory in the first half of the game, then Tome of Offerings on somebody who was incredibly hard to kill, and print the glory. So it's okay to take them both, but now you can't take them both and Shifting Madness and
Scrum,
Tome of Offerings,
or whatever else.
Yeah, and have the benefit of Survival Instincts, which makes them easier to score. And Frenzied Search, not Frenzied Search. Always get those.
Yeah, Frenzied Search and Restless Pride. You can't have any of those.
You've got to choose your. Meanwhile, you're printing Glory with Cryptic Companion at the same time, so you haven't got that option anymore. So I think it's fair enough to take them both, and I think it's still probably the most powerful iteration of those cards. Just off the top of my head, it feels like a very powerful thing to do. And I suspect a lot of Grimwatch players will still take them both.
Yeah, but it does mean they have to take other cards. They can't take any of those other juicy cards they would normally take, and I think that's the whole idea of it. Dark Crocker said, why restrict Tough and Hide but allow Hail Charm? Why restrict In the Name of the King but allow the spoilers? I think it just comes down to the fact that these warbands use those things so well, and it just makes them that much better. And I think like the Despoilers and In the Name of the King example, Despoilers need Despoilers, and generally that's not how they play. Typically, they're not so interested in objectives, whereas Grimwatch are just all about standing on objectives. So for them,
and as Craig pointed out, it's not like you can't have in the name of the king still. You can still take it. It's just a cost.
Yeah. It just means that you have to dedicate yourself much more to that specific role, and it means you don't give yourself quite so many other options to print glory and make yourself lethal.
No, whereas the despoilers probably need some of the other stuff.
Yeah, because
for example, survival instincts, like they probably need that more. But it's better for the Grimwatch because the Grimwatch you can bring people back. So if you lose a fighter with it on, you potentially can bring them back and get 2 bites of that cherry.
Yeah.
Why restrict Tough and Hide and how Charm's kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
With Frothgorn, you can really build up to a lot of wounds and then be really, really hard to chip them down. Skaeth, is it a Skaeth specific card? I think it is.
Hail Charm, I don't think it's Skaeth specific. I think it's just the Wild Hunt specific.
Is it? Okay, but
it's just Hunter specific.
It's just Hunter specific. Okay, but it is. It's a
universal-ish.
Yeah. So I think most of those guys aren't going to get a lot of use out of it because
they're 3 or 4 wound fighters. So
yeah, for a 4 wound. I mean, Skaeth will because probably not very many people do 5 damage, but lots of people end up doing 4 damage. In which case, there's no use to the rest of the warband.
No, exactly.
Whereas in the Hrothgorn's case, you're going to stick it on him. It's never going on any of the other fighters, and he's just that little bit harder to kill. You could actually mean an extra 2 or 3 extra attacks.
Yeah. So what other cards have we got in there? We got Hrothgorn has lost, as we've already covered, Toughened Hide, because giving a 6 wound fighter a -1 damage buff is quite disgusting. And he's also lost Unexpected Cunning, I think, because that was just such an easy card to score for them.
There's the multiple ploy one, isn't it? Oh no, multiple power card one. Yeah, that's too easy. Yeah, typical Hrothgorn has 11 wounds and Toughened Hide in the 3rd round. There you go. There's Valentin's.
Yeah,
kind of seals the argument.
Yeah, he could turn into an absolute monster. And if you were playing I assume that setup was for a tomes deck, and then you're stuffed. You can't.
Yeah,
kill
he's
him.
got his own. He's got his own sudden growth as well, hasn't he?
He does. Yeah. Yes, you slap both of them.
They haven't restricted. Interestingly,
they haven't. No, that's true. But I guess it's because sudden growth is already restricted, and there's enough other ones restricted that you probably aren't ever going to be able to take them all now.
Yeah.
Unexpected Cunning was the one where you just have to play your 3rd or subsequent power card. Now, again, the Despoilers have a version of that. But again, I think they're a lot worse off, so they need the help a lot more than Hrothgorn did.
Yeah.
Storm Size next has Harness the Storm, which, I mean...
Nobody's sad about that, are they?
No, I don't think even the Averon's players are sad about that one.
Even Averon.
Yeah.
So, well, it's a fair cop.
Yeah, you got me. It's taken you about 18 months, but you've got me.
Yeah, I think that card, in some ways, it's less important now, that restriction, than it would have been a year ago.
Yeah. It's like nearly everybody's got some easy to score, easy to cast spells to score that with.
Yeah,
I think it's just the fact that they had their own version of it as well as all the universal versions.
Yeah,
Of
but also they can't all empower, but 2 of them can empower off the blocks, can't they? So it's an easy card to score. I don't think anybody's sad to see that one go.
No. And the last one was the Thorns one, Sudden Appearance, and that is an uber card. That is a really handy card to have. There isn't another card like it in the game, I don't think.
It's such a nice card. I really like it. I'm really disappointed it's restricted, but I can totally see why it is.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, you can use it for everything. You can shove someone away if you're in danger. You can slap the Queen onto her hex right next to someone you want to kill. And it's a ploy, so it's not like people can stop it. Like we've had games where one person puts Fameway Crystal on somebody, and the other person that goes, I see what you're doing, I'm just going to put my person on the only objective in my territory now, and you're like, you've done me. Whereas the Queen, it's like, I'm just going to pop over here or jump over there.
Yeah.
Fourth Moth says, when he first saw Hunter's Reflexes, his first thought was 12 pushes after getting it on the first turn. How didn't GW see that? Do they have playtesters? Well, I think part of it comes down to the fact they have a limited number of playtesters and a limited amount of playtesting time. And I think, I mean, I don't know. We're not involved in playtesting at all, but it does seem to me like quite often their playtesters aren't focusing so much on how to break the game, but how to play the game. And they're like, do these cards sit well? Are they fluffy? Do they have some uses? Can you integrate them into warbands? Can they do they interplay nicely with abilities of the warbands and stuff? But they don't think, how much of a beardy arsehole can I be with this card and try and break the game? And because they don't do that,
they have to get Michael Carlin to be not that he's an arsehole, but they have to get Michael Carlin to play, because he loves breaking the cards. That's what he's for. So he should be the playtester, really.
And he's good at it. He comes up with really, really nasty combos that just break the game.
I wonder a little bit whether they. I don't know at what point the playtesters get involved, and there are other people in the community who are in that circle, so they would know better. Whether they actually get them slightly too far down the line, almost like at the point at which they've already printed the card, and it's almost like, well, can you just play with these and see what they're like, and then it's too late to do anything about it. And so they probably know for this stage what they're going to have to do, but actually whether they have them involved 2-3 years ago when the cards are being designed, I don't know.
Yeah, because they are being designed quite a way back, and I guess for the first 2 seasons almost, they probably couldn't even get playtesters involved, because for the first season they couldn't even really tell anyone about it because they were only just designing the game. So
Valentin says he thinks playtesters think, can this card help me win the next Grand Clash? Well, you said it, Valentin. I'm not.
Couldn't possibly comment.
I'm not being drawn on that.
The allowance of people who playtest the rules into and employees being allowed into Grand Clash events is a whole different topic, which we have
talked about that before.
Spend a long time on that, but we're not going to. We're just talking about the changes tonight.
I think it's a difficult one, especially when you end up with not that we're bitter because we got hammered at the Grand Clash event. The situation with Power Unbound deck. If that deck was playtested, it was playtested very badly.
Yeah.
And then we turned up. Some people had used those cards before. A few of us had a week to get used to it, and then
they'd only been out a week, hadn't they?
Yeah, and then they were all restricted immediately afterwards.
Yeah, I love that.
Bit rubbish, but anyway, we won't go. That's my sour grapes talking.
Yeah. The few sour grapes are showing.
Wine.
Hey. So we're now up to like 30 odd restricted cards and 5 Forsaken cards, which cuts the pool down a bit. And I, for one, for the most part, am pretty happy with the changes. I'm looking forward to seeing some very different builds now popping out, because if you look at any of like the top 5 winners for any of like the Warhammer Underworlds Online, or not Underworlds Online, for like the Vassal one games and all that kind of stuff, they were just, I mean, I looked at the Wormspat deck that came third, and it had like 9 restricted cards in it now, so there's a reason why it happens.
Yeah, I mean, most decks have a good chunk of those in, which is why they're even my crappy decks, my Godsworn Hunt deck, and I did look at that one. Which one did I look at? I looked at I'm playing Chosen Axes tonight. That deck has had 3 cards in it that's been restricted, and my Condemners one, which neither of those decks are meta defining or going to win any tournaments, but they both had 3 new cards they've got to be taken out and changed. And I don't think either of them had combination striking, funnily enough.
I mean, combination strike and the other one, opening gambit, they were nearly always in my deck, and that's why I'm not sad to see them go, really, because they were just also includes.
And it should make the games more interesting, because that means you're going to have to put something in there that you've got to go out and try and score.
Yeah.
So that's just so much better.
Yeah, and I hope if they do implement any more score glory for scoring glory type cards, they go back to like the season 1 structure where you had like victory after victory, where you had to score 3 other objectives to be able to score a 2 glory objective.
That's tough. That's hard to score.
That's much tougher.
Superior Tactician was
six objectives,
well, but that
it?
became too easy just because of the ubiquity of surge cards.
It did a bit. I think if they'd have cut that down to maybe 2 glory instead of 3, maybe it would have been a harder call to make, possibly. But yeah, that kind of thing, I'd like to see if they're going to do score glory for scoring glory cards again, that they're much harder to pull off and much more of a risk to take.
So Craig asked an interesting question. Do you think after these new restrictions and the upcoming rotation that Curse Breakers are still viable as a competitive warband? That's a really interesting question. I haven't played Curse Breakers enough to know. I feel like that they're going to struggle because a lot of spells are going out. Unless there's going to be a lot of new spells in the last 2 decks, a lot of spells are going out.
Yeah.
In the rotation. So that's going to be interesting. With no Harness the Storm, or not with no Harness the Storm, with restricted, it's going to be tougher for them.
But if it's tough for them, it's going to be even tougher for Eyes of the Nine or things like that. So they're certainly not bottom of the pile, I don't
True.
think.
Although I'm wondering now whether, because there's a few spells that they might be able to take. I don't know. Yeah, Andrew's probably the best person to comment. He is online. And Eyes of the Nine, are they stuffed when the rotation comes, Andrew?
Have you done your
They're
analysis?
stuffed anyway.
Yeah. Are they more stuffed?
VJ says, "What's going on here?" Then, well, it's Tuesday. It's Tuesday night. It's Thursday night, and we were going to record tonight one of our games, and we might still, depending on how long we talk for. But their new fart list has dropped today, so we're
They've dropped one.
we've dropped a new fart today, so we're going to go live. We went live. We only announced it about 3 or 4 hours ago, VJ. So don't feel too bad. You've probably been asleep.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, literally, we only decided about 3 or 4 o'clock when they dropped the new file list that we thought, well, we're going to be meeting tonight, so it seems like we should probably jump on this one. We don't often get a chance to head off the pack and get something out there early. So
yeah, no, exactly. I mean, normally we'd be meeting, and therefore we'd be screwed because we couldn't do this because we'd be in the same place and out in the garage. There's no connection.
Although normally we would meet on a Wednesday. So
and I know that. I know that. And then we've been moaning, "Oh, I can't believe we recorded games last night and they've changed it." But instead we're moaning. But yeah.
But I mean, we do still have the problem now that obviously all of you people in YouTube land who aren't Patreoners, even some of the Patreon videos that we still haven't released yet, they're obviously now out of date.
We haven't updated our decks tonight, so I'm not sure. I don't know whether we'll play tonight or not because we do. It's out of date. But we'll see. So let's have a look here. Really looking forward to making new decks for the Eyes of the Nine, Andrew says, and he also says that they have some of the best innate spells in the game. The only thing they actually have. And
they've got some nice manoeuvre cards as well, haven't they? Because they've got the one where you can put someone on an objective or a starting hex, and they've got some other stuff, some funky little tricks up their sleeves. Una
is listening to the Bee Gees, and Valentin says, "I said it before and I say it again, the leader of the Eyes of the Nine is a chicken." They were screwed by at birth. Yeah, well, that is true.
With one wing.
It's true.
Well, I do like KFC though, so maybe it'll still come useful.
VJ's not too sure that anyone is worried. Decks might be out of date. You say that, VJ, but every time, no matter how many disclaimers that the decks were made before or after before the fart list, if somebody, normally more than one, somebody comments that you can't use that card now. You do know that.
Even when, when the video comes out on the day a new list comes out, or like within a day, people are like, "Oh, you can't use that card. It got rectified 2 hours ago." We played these a little bit more in advance, so yes.
And now that well edited straight out the game, wouldn't it?
Yeah. The person who complains in your videos is my alter YouTube profile. That explains a lot.
Don't believe it, Andrew. Have you got like a brother out there?
Mandrew Arlo.
Different to you. Just goes around trashing everything rather than still loving my terrible Gloomhaven videos.
But he does get your coffee if you ask for it.
Yeah, that's true. That Andrew is a bastard.
So we also have the designer's commentary, which has a whole plethora of new stuff in it, which has now reached a mind-boggling 17 pages. It's a lot of shit on there now.
We'll just say we do have a new thing that we do want to make a thing in the community. We do want to establish the Marlowe meta.
Yeah.
Or pulling a Marlowe, or the verb to Marlowe.
So,
which is where you do something crazy.
Just because. Just because you want to make that one.
You just do some crazy combination that work like the amazing. If you haven't seen the video yet, do check out the Petitioner deck, the Fervent Petitioner deck.
Yeah,
that is the very definition of pulling a Marlowe.
Yeah, pulling a Marlowe. I'm going to Marlowe this. I'm going to fucking Marlowe this one. Yeah, that's what you want.
I've gone full Marlowe.
Yeah.
See, it's just got so many potential. I want it to be a word in the Underworld's community.
Yeah.
Because we need more people like Andrew to make crazy decks and not just
uber competitive decks.
Efficient decks. We want off the wall ideas.
Yeah. I want to see a post where someone goes, "I was just about to win, and then my bloody opponent did a Marlowe and scored 7 glory." Oh, I fucking hate it when people do a Marlowe.
Andrew's got a challenge now. He's getting requests. Have you got anything interesting for your Thari? And
Tim as well with his Auric deck, his insane 24 card 3 different end phase Auric deck of craziness. Yes, definitely that kind of thing. Still using things like denial and stuff like that. When you think denial, bloody hell, I haven't taken that in years.
Ooh.
So we're going to have a look through the designer's commentary. I don't think there's a lot that's oh my god, bowl you over with sudden changes stuff here. I think a lot of it is just repeating obvious stuff like when you roll the dice, no, you can't throw them at your opponent's face and stuff like that. So just
count goes on the floor.
Yeah,
obviously not.
Never ever ever does it count unless it's a 6. So, like there's one where it's like if a single dice ability allows you to re-roll multiple dice, or sorry, if a single ability allows you to re-roll multiple dice, can you re-roll them one at a time? We'll re-roll one before you see if you want to re-roll the next one. Like, no, you just pick the dice and you re-roll them.
Yeah, can a fighter have both the Hunter and Quarry keywords? Yes. I mean, I guess it's a potential problem, but it never occurred to me that they wouldn't be able to.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing anywhere to say that no, they can't. Why would you think that at all?
No. There's the line of sight one.
There's the one, do upgrades still apply to fighters if they're dead? Well, why wouldn't they? They keep them. If they come back, they still have them. So why wouldn't they still apply to them when they were dead?
Well, yes, although they don't for things like scoring objectives, do they? Where is that one?
How do you mean? Well, no, they do, but they only apply to because like you're talking about the Valric and the upgrade that makes everyone a quarry. I mean, that still applies to her, but it also says on the card that she has to be on the board or alive or something like that.
Okay.
So
it's upgrades given to a fighter still apply when that fighter without action. For example, does the wounds modifier from Great Fortitude still apply? Oh, I see. So that's if you've taken a fighter out who's 4 wounds.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. I'm thinking of things like what's it called? The one where you have to have 3 upgrades on somebody and you get glory.
Yeah.
But that doesn't count if they're dead.
Because they have to be on the board.
I think they do have to be out. I think they probably doesn't say out, but still surviving. But yes,
surviving enemy, surviving fight with 3 upgrades or whatever. I'm going to go from the bottom of the list. If you want to go from the top of the list, and then we can alternate reading any out that we think are particularly useful or anything like that.
Right, well, I think none of them are useful, so I'll just let you talk. Okay. Can a fighter be pushed by scatter and end the push in the hex that the push started in? Yes, that's fairly obvious, I think.
Yep. I don't see why. Again, why wouldn't you? It doesn't say anything that.
Chosen champion is singled out. Thanks, guys.
Those are the ones. Can I use the card with gambits that use the word switch to change 2 fighters' positions, like nervous grabbling or bound by fate? Yes, well, yes, obviously.
Yeah, it's the score shortcut, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable question just to clarify the language. Language,
Timothy. Does an innate symbol count towards the symbols needed to cast this card? Well,
I thought we were taking it in turns.
Oh, sorry, go on.
No, go on, I'm already joking.
Yeah, up to you.
So what was that one?
Well, actually, I'm going to... it was if you have an innate symbol, do innate symbols count towards one of the symbols needed to cast wild form? Like, why wouldn't it? It's one of the symbols you've rolled. Yeah. It's just rather than randomly generating the symbol, you've just been given it.
And again, that one would never have occurred to me that crit and a success counted, but I can see why people might wonder. But it's pretty clear. It's pretty clear. It's doubles that are needed.
They have finally added in the Restless Prize and blocked hex when you can't push Restless Prize through a blocked hex, which was clarified at the Grand Clash we went to, I think, in January.
Okay.
God, that was this year, wasn't it?
It was.
That seems like a lifetime ago.
Yeah. Well, quite a lot's happened since then. Well, a lot and not a lot.
Yeah. Everything and nothing.
Yeah, I've repeated the same day for 3 months.
There are only 3 days
okay,
now.
when checking if my attack actions had a line of sight, this is what Valentin was talking about earlier. Yep. If the line drawn touches an incomplete hex, it doesn't go through it. Does that still block line of sight? And the answer is no. I think we've covered that, so I won't go over that one again. Then there's some scything attack ones. At what point during a scything attack action must a player decide which fighters that attack action will target at the point they declare that their fighter is making a scything attack action? This happens before step 1 of the combat sequence for the first attack action made as part of the scything attack action. So I suppose that just makes you can't add fighters in, or I hadn't played with scything that often. I couldn't quite see when you would need this?
This is on page
3.
page 3, isn't it? Yeah, because it's going to be. I mean, you're going to scythe all of them, aren't you?
I think so. I couldn't imagine, unless one of them had a bomb strapped to them or something.
I think it's to stop people being able to start a scything attack, use an ability that enables them to push them hex, so they're next to more people, hit somebody, push them, hit somebody, push them.
See.
They can only hit the people they initially selected
Yeah.
in their scything attack.
There are a few things like duelist speed, is it? Make an attack action and push
Those
somebody.
kind of things. There's some newer ones here as well, that kind of thing. So after a successful attack, push this fighter 1 hex or whatever, and it's like just to stop people doing that kind of thing.
Yeah, that makes some sense. Yeah, okay. Have you got one, Pete?
I did have one here. I've lost it now because I scrolled up to look at the one you were talking about then, but I was just going to go through it.
Valentin says, Valentin said, do you need to declare the sequence of fighters you want to hit? I
don't think you do. I think you just do one at a time.
Do. But normally it's quite rare that there's 3. I mean, sometimes happens, but so therefore you normally pick one and then move from there. But I don't know whether you have to exactly pick the sequence.
No, I don't think you have to beyond who you're going to attack first, and then you resolve that one, and then you go, right, now I'm going to attack this person, and then. So I don't think there's anything in the rules to say that you have to pick up front. I'm going to do A, then B, then C. You can just do them one at a time. The one I found, which seems like a bit obvious, which is jealous defense, which is obviously make an attack if you're on an objective ploy. They're saying if they did damage, who's considered to have dealt the damage, the ploy or the fighter? Well, it's obviously the fighter. The ploy just let you make an attack action with the fighter. The fighter did the damage.
Yes. Yeah. That's a slightly odd one. Okay. If a fighter's inspire condition is met by a reaction that takes place during an action, super action, or activation, such as Stormsire casting ER's instant shield spell during an opponent's attack action, or Scritch being chosen with countercharge, does this fighter inspire after the reaction is resolved, or after the entire action / super action / activation? And a very sensible answer is after the entire action / super action / activation is resolved, which is good because that stops you moving up an inspired Scritch.
yeah, which would be.
Although you can't attack that person, so in some ways, because does Scritch make an attack on countercharge? He just can't. No, he does.
No, countercharge is just you push somebody up.
Okay,
I believe.
I can't remember.
We look countercharge. Countercharge is the one where after the enemy. Play this after an enemy fighter's move action that's part of a charge. You can choose a friendly fighter and push them up to 3 hexes, and they must end the push adjacent to the enemy fighter.
But they don't make an attack action.
No, they don't. They just move.
So I suppose if you've got an extra defense, it might make a difference potentially.
Yeah, especially
you can't
for
attack. Yeah, can you change at that point? You could.
Yeah, because you can move.
Can
your
change.
Opponent could then move. You could then move somebody up to assist, and then your opponent might actually go, "Actually, I'm going to hit Scritch now. He's moved up because." So that kind of makes sense. So that one again. That one seems a bit more relevant as a question, and I had one in here as well where it was like with the blind side, can you push somebody who is supporting via spirit bond? Like no, it has to be actually supporting next to. So it makes kind of sense.
Sorry, Peter. What is blind side?
The blind side is the one where after somebody makes a charge.
Yeah.
You can push someone up to 2 hexes so they're assisting, but it can be either way. So it can be if you're charging me or if I'm charging you, it can be either one.
Yeah, but you can't push up
you can't push up
somebody who's already supporting, because that was an important question, wasn't it? Because you could get positional advantage by pushing somebody round.
Yeah, also you can't push a fighter if they're supporting via spirit bond.
Yeah,
they're already supporting, so that kind of makes sense to clarify that kind of thing.
It does, yeah. I think that was a good ruling, that one. If a surge objective card with no specific scoring window, such as one wheel, is drawn as an action during an activation or in the end phase, and the scoring condition is met at that time, can you score that card at that time? Yes, you can.
Makes sense.
Yep.
Wow, the inspire condition for Scritch has a massive chunk of text on it. It's a quarter of a page.
Wow.
I'm not even going to read it, but there's even more information than now. It's like, wow.
There is actually an extra kind of similar question on my bit, which is if a surge objective which is scored after an activation, such as swift capture or temporary victory, is drawn as an action during an activation and the scoring condition is met at that time, can you score that card after that activation? And the answer to that is yes as well, which would be fair enough because it's not like drawing into it when you've just scored something else. You are using an activation to draw that card.
Yeah.
That's perfectly reasonable, and I wouldn't have played it any differently. And we did have a question. I remember having a question when we played at the Grand Clash, when we played the day after about I can't remember what it was now, a Harrow's card. It might have been one wheel that I managed to score during my opponent's turn, I think. And I didn't know whether I could score it or not, and the answer would be yes.
Yep.
Right.
There's a few more for Scritch in there because I think there's some old ones in here as well, and I wonder whether some of these are pretty obvious because there's like is for momentary boldness, which is if you've got a Skaven next to two other Skaven, you can make a charge with that fighter or make an attack with them. It says, are they inspired before or after the charge action? It's after. It's like, well, obviously it's after because it's after the super action occurs. So yeah, I think it's because a lot of these cards have taken on new meanings with the whole super action sort of thing now, whereas before it would have been instantly and they could have inspired then charged. Now it's like after the whole thing. Is the Warden's action that allows two friendly fighters to make a move action a super action? Yes. That's
a new ruling, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's many situations where that would make much of a difference, but I guess if you moved one fighter through an objective, you could score, or through a lethal hex, you could score calculated risk. Then maybe if you picked up the next card and it was something like, I can't even think now, but another.
Or if you had something, if you had like, I know you can't have it in this game, but if you could have my turn, or something. So you put them through it and then played my turn, and then they wouldn't be inspired.
Yeah, or no, not for Skellies.
No, I know. I'm just saying that. You're right. Sorry.
You're thinking about Skaven.
I'm thinking of Oryx.
Oryx, yeah. But I guess it's a case of if you move someone through a lethal hex and score calculated risk, you couldn't then pick up another card and then think, oh, actually now I want to move this other skeleton over there because that'll help me score that one. You've got to do it afterwards. So yeah, that kind of makes sense.
How long did Pete's beard take to get to that stage? Questions start getting silly now. Fair enough. The answers are getting silly too.
My beard is about 3 years old now.
If a crit ghoul on an objective token at the start of the action phase uses the muster ability, does that crit ghoul count as having been on that objective at the start of the round for the purposes of dug in? And the answer is no. Significant ruling, I think. And then while we're sort of sticking with the Grimwatch, their gambits. If a fighter is pushed with Stench of Victory after the attack is successful, but before the deal damage step, are they still considered as a supporting fighter for the purposes of cards like Low Cunning or Bravely Done? And the answer to that is yes. I can't remember what Stench of Victory does.
That pushes somebody 2 hexes away from you.
Okay. And then there's the ruling about Hunter's Nose, which is basically once she's dead, their opponents are no longer quarries.
I was wrong. Stench of Victory is actually play after a friendly fighter's successful attack. Before you deal damage, you choose another friendly fighter and push them up to 3 hexes so they are adjacent to the target.
Okay.
I'm not sure it's one people took very often.
No, I don't think so.
Certainly don't think it's one we ever took very often.
No, I'm getting towards Hrothgord on the amazing trap list.
Most of which seems to be bloody obvious, I'm afraid to say. Yeah. I mean, it didn't really seem particularly requiring of questions in that situation.
You got any? You want to keep going?
I noticed there's a whole massive chunk again for Stormsire. There's a whole quarter of a page on Stormsire and when do they inspire after they cast a spell. So there's a whole load of stuff on that one again, which is probably worth a read. I think it just clarifies, especially when you have spell reactions and stuff like that now, which you didn't really have so much before.
Yeah, it's quite a long, complicated read because of all the different action, super action, activation,
all that kind of jazz.
Yeah.
So that's I'm still reading through.
Okay, well I'll carry on with Rippers then. After my rider's attack action in their activation, can I use a reaction to that attack action and then use Snarlfang's Jaws attack action and reaction? No. Which we kind of touched where we almost got it wrong in one of our previous live chats.
Yes, but we did correct ourselves.
We did. We just caught ourselves in the nick of time, so you can't. Because the wolf reaction is a reaction at the end of the attack after the first attack action. and would be a combo attack or something like that, which is what we were talking about. Loaded with plunder. Can you score loaded with plunder with a fighter with 3 or more upgrades that is out of action? No. Interesting.
Sure, it says a live fighter or something like that.
I'm sure it does. It's a curious.
Let me look it up. Is it
Okay.
loaded with plunder?
Yeah.
So loaded with plunder says score this in an end phase if 1 or more friendly fighters have 3 or more. So it doesn't actually say live. So it's not like it's singled out. So if we look at singled out, for example, singled out says score an end phase of a surviving friendly fighter. So that is a bit of a balls up on GW's part there with their wording.
Yeah. Have a word with the playtesters.
Valentin asks, have we ever had a game where 2 traps on the same hex, or maybe even a lethal hex? No, I think we've had a game where we had the trap on a lethal hex,
but we haven't played the mirror.
No one likes mirror matches.
We don't tend to play mirrors because nobody watches them.
Even less than people watch our matches at the minute anyway.
A few times, I can't remember back early days. I think it might have been Skeletons versus Skeletons, and we were really excited about playing it.
Yeah.
It'd be really good. Everyone would love to see that. All 7, all 14 starting hexes filled, and about 6 people watched it.
Yeah, it wasn't one of our more popular ones. And I think we did Gits versus Gits, didn't we? And that didn't really do well. And we thought that would do well because we thought everyone loves Gits. And no one cared.
Gits squared.
Gits squared was Gits halved in this case.
Do you worry that the rules are getting too complicated for new players? I know I'm very hesitant to get back in, even using net decks, as the card and rule interaction seem far too complicated now. To be honest, VJ, I don't.
I think they've been made simpler.
I should expand on that a little bit. Go on, Pete.
I was just going to say, I think they've made it a bit simpler now with the flow diagram they put on the back of the 3rd edition's rules.
I think that a lot of these interactions...
Oh, you've gone very quiet or nearly silent. Have you fiddled with your microphone?
All quiet.
There we go, back again.
Okay, how bizarre. I think that a lot of these interactions that they're talking about here are kind of real edge cases.
Yeah.
And you can have a really good game, and a fair game, even if you don't necessarily get all of the interactions 100% right. Pete and I are a very good example that you could do that. We do it week after week.
Yeah.
And so I think the game is still reasonably simple. There are a few extra bits and pieces, things like the trap make it more complicated maybe, but I think it's still, at its heart, it's a simple game. And I think if you don't get everything right, it's still a good game. It's still pretty balanced.
Yeah.
It's only
I think, like you say, you're unlikely to come across a lot of these interactions in the wild. For the
a lot of them are clarifications to stop people from abusing the rules.
I think if you took out the really obvious answers to the questions, you would go from 17 pages down to not a lot at all.
Yeah, and there's a few cards. I know they've taken them out, but there's a few they've banned them. But there's a few cards that have a load of FAQ because the interactions with them are complicated, but they're only complicated if you're looking to make them complicated.
Yeah. Now there's one in here. It's like, can the trap damage fighters that are not affected by lethal hexes? Yes. Well, it doesn't say anywhere it makes it a lethal hex, so why would you think that it wouldn't work on them? It's just those things you just have to, because you don't explicitly say, people are like, well, it doesn't say in the rules. Like, no, but it's fucking obvious.
Yeah.
So,
there are some that aren't. Is the damage from trap model dealt before or after snare and pit trap? That one I wasn't sure.
Which we wondered. I think we had a game where we had, I don't know if we actually mattered in the end, or whether we just sort of we ended up in that situation where, I wonder which one it is, and it didn't matter. But it wasn't. It's nice to know what the actual answer is there.
Yeah, VJ says that's good to hear. It seems like every new warband brings more complicated cards. That is a problem. I won't deny it. It does make that they do on first appearances appear to make things more complicated, and they try and add new tricks to make it more interesting. And I think maybe they could do with a little bit less of that. But in reality, nearly all of the new kind of rule bits aren't normally that good, so they end up being dropped.
And it's a bit like the example we loaded with plunder there. I mean, that's just a cock-up on the card wording, because they haven't put surviving fighter, they've just put fighter. So right now, why wouldn't you be able to score that? They've just said no, but based on the wording, you have a fighter that has 3 upgrades, so why can't you score it? Because all the other cards say surviving friendly fighter. So
Well, they do, but 95% of people would still play it the way it was intended.
I suspect so, but
But as soon as you get to tournament situation, then you've got to clarify it.
Yeah, when you've got tournaments going on, it's got to be airtight.
Yeah.
So that's a reasonable question to
So
ask.
Pete Robin, tournament veterans. How does Hrothgorn's ability to make each enemy fighter a quarry work? So again, we've touched on this.
Yeah.
They all have the quarry keyword, but not when he's out of action. And then we go into the whole trap spiel.
Debacle. The Hrothgorn one, I kind of feel like Hrothgorn. I kind of feel like that was a poorly worded card again. It should have just said, whilst Hrothgorn is on the table, all enemy fighters are considered to be quarries.
Exactly. Yeah.
But they just worded it poorly.
Yeah. That's good though. That's another ruling that we played wrong. So that's good to know.
Yep. I think we're still 100%.
I think we are still 100%. Is that strange beeping noise Robin's washing machine? Yes, my wife is obsessed with doing washing, and then she's gone upstairs and talking to one of her friends on the phone, and I'll have to leave to turn it off. My son is still up. Actually, no, he's gone to bed now too, but he wouldn't get up and turn it off either. So yeah, it will stop in a minute.
I think it's stopped now. Seems to have stopped now.
It's either that or it's a robot invasion. One of them. Does Bushwhacker take damage if he enters the same hex as his trap? No. I think it even says that on the card. Does Bushwhacker take damage if he enters the same trap as another Bushwhacker's trap? Then yes, he does. Because it says that on the card. Is a trap a lethal hex or a feature token? No. Is it a model because it'll be a fighter? No, which is interesting. If a hex contains the trap, does that stop being an empty hex? No. That's quite an important rule, I think, because it's not clear, because it is a model, and the other models fill hexes. It was an interesting distinction. Can Bushwhacker place a trap in the same hex as an objective or a lethal hex, or the same hex as another trap? Yes.
I'd say like 80% of the trap questions are bleeding obvious answers.
Then what happens when a fighter enters a hex that contains a trap and a lethal hex and is a lethal hex? They do the trap damage and then the lethal hex damage. And then one of my favourite ones is where's it gone? I've lost it. I've lost my favourite one, which is about whether you can have 2 in the same hex.
It's a bit of a weird answer though, because
what happens when a fighter enters a hex that contains 2 or more trap models? Yes, use the sequencing rules. Yeah, I didn't quite get that.
No, I don't really get that one. It's like, what sequencing rules? There's no double trap hex sequencing rules.
Unless it's just which order you resolve the cards, in which case you resolve one fighter's first. It might be significant for objective scoring or something. But yeah, it's slightly presumably because there is one about if a trap takes out a model.
Yeah.
So I guess you need to know what sequence the traps fire off in.
I presume
who scores that.
It's a reaction, isn't it? So surely, if it's my turn, your trap would fire first, kind of thing.
Is it a reaction, or does it just happen? No, you place it. You place it as a reaction, but I don't think it fires as a reaction.
Which means that the sequencing rules still don't help. What are these sequencing rules that help us decide here?
Yeah, reactions are a bit of a pain. Junior said when playing Ripper, he started doubting himself, having to read again and again how reactions work. Yes. Oh, there's a lot of words here. Do we need to keep reading them out?
No, I think we do. Well, I think I've come from the bottom, and I'm kind of up to where you are now. So
okay, brilliant. I'll just go some Lady Harrow's ones. You can score 1 wheel if you use Quickening Greaves. Dissipate innate dodge doesn't affect anything other than defense rolls, but I wouldn't have thought it would have done. And can Frightful Aspect choose a card that cannot be chosen by Gambit? Yes. Presumably that's because it's played on your opponent. Please play on your model, and your model pushes the person away.
Frightful Aspect is just push an enemy fighter up to 1 hex, so it's just distraction. Frightful Aspect, yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. So, because distraction wouldn't work.
Is it because this just says push an enemy fighter up to 1 hex, whereas distraction says choose 1 enemy fighter?
Okay, how bizarre.
Distraction says choose 1 enemy fighter and push them 1 hex. Again, this is kind of sort of slightly bollocksy GW wording on cards. So that answer makes sense. Yes, they can, because you don't choose an enemy fighter, but why the fuck have you made a card that's just ever so slightly fucking different to all the others? It's just bollocks.
Now, Pete, I have to remind you, we're a family show.
I think you'll find I mark all our videos as not suitable for children.
Do you?
Yep, because you can't put any advertising on them if you do.
Oh, I see.
So
I see. Yeah.
it's all about the money. That
I
20p we're going to make off of this made it completely worthwhile. But it just, that kind of thing really annoys me. The slightly woolly, slightly, oh yeah, because we missed one word off, that makes all the difference. But then on another card where they missed the word off, no, that doesn't make a difference. It works the same as the other cards. Make up your bloody mind!
Pete swears a lot in the unedited version of the show. Yes, he does. I think we both swear more.
It just bugs me. It's like Loaded with Plunder. They miss a word out, but that's the same as the other card. But then Frightful Aspect, they miss a word out, and it is completely different to the other card. How the pox and Watsits are we meant to work that out?
Yeah, I've just been looking at myself in the video window. I'm starting to look like somebody from Spandau Ballet.
Just imagine you suddenly catching your reflection in the mirror, just sort of making, kissing faces at it. my, I am sexy. So I think overall, it's worth obviously looking through the card interactions list, especially Skaven and Cursebreaker inspiration mechanics, if you happen to play either of those warbands or come up against them a lot. And yeah, there's 17 pages of this stuff on it, but I think a lot of it is just obvious. I think it's obvious.
Nothing wrong with the swears. We're all adults here. Well, that is true. But I don't know what the rules are, because YouTube has rules about advertising, and if you swear, then it's
comically it's fine if you use the F word as long as it's not in the title.
Really?
Yeah, fucked if I know why.
Did you just make that up for that joke?
No, that is true, 100% true. As long as it's not in the title or the intro bit of the video, then that's okay.
Well, better looking expanded out than Flock of Seagulls. That's a very good point, VJ. Yeah.
But I would say
you're sporting a mallet in a couple of weeks' time.
Better than me. I'm just going to end up bald, I think. Just going to big razor the whole thing off.
What are kids doing up at this time of night anyway? Well, yeah, but it's more after the fact, because obviously the videos carry on. They're there forever. Forever, yeah.
So, but
Valentin
I would say
Valentin agrees with me. Valentin knows what he's talking about. He agrees that they shouldn't try too hard to put new mechanics to the game. How often do they change the rules of chess? Yes, exactly.
Yeah, chess is working just fine right now.
It's been okay
since they added in the white pieces. Chess has been absolutely fine.
Yeah,
a bit boring before that, but So there we go. Those are all
the online
changes.
version's pretty good too.
Oh, I love the online version of chess.
Yeah, of chess. Yeah,
very good. You can also play that by post.
Ban the rook. Ban the rook. I ban.
It always reminds me of the. I remember back when I used to play World of Warcraft many years ago, and I remember seeing somebody complaining about how one of the classes had been buffed up whilst another class hadn't, and obviously the class that hadn't, in their mind was their class, and they were going, "Oh, this other class is too powerful. They need to buff my class and nerf that class." Are you talking
about our role-playing sessions again?
Sort of, yeah. And and someone just responded with, "Dear developers, scissors suck. Nerf." Well, I can't remember the exact phrase. It was something like "scissors suck, nerf stone, or nerf paper, love stone," or something like that. It was basically, there's always going to be people complaining about this isn't good enough and that's too good now, that kind of thing. But I think, and just to readdress VJ's fears that it looks like it's getting too complicated, I don't think overall it is. I don't think it is that complicated overall. I think it's just these very small situations don't come up very often.
No, it does seem to be a problem, and I've nearly written about this before for Geek Dad. It does seem to be a bit of a problem with the modern game, is that they have to keep evolving stuff. I suppose it's like the power creep thing, but they have to keep evolving it to make it fresh, to make people want to buy more stuff, because that's obviously, I suppose it's like, I think I've commented, is capitalism ruining board games? Because you have to keep making new things to people buy your product, but actually the perfect iteration of rules might have been two sets ago. And if you keep bolting things on, it doesn't get any better. It just gets more and more different. It's a really tough nut to crack. I think if you're a games company, you want to keep making rules and things.
If you came up with a game and everyone perfect, that's brilliant. You don't need to change a thing. This is absolutely excellent as it is.
Like chess.
Yeah, and then everyone's like, "Oh, crap, we're not going to make any more money out of this now. Everyone's bought a copy.
Yeah, but I do kind of feel like Games Workshop have got there is another thing, which is the look and feel of their games. So their models, people will still buy them for the models. And I'm not sure they need as many new rules for this game, as we've talked about that before. But I still love the game, so I'm not complaining. But I do worry that it will bloat. Because that's a problem with all across the board.
Yeah, I mean you've got regular attacks. Yeah, you've got regular attacks. You've got spell attacks. You've also got reactionary spell attacks and reactionary attacks, and you've got what was it called? The when you can make an attack and you've got a thing which is combo. You've got combo attacks. You've got the whole Hunter-Quarry mechanic. You've got poisons. There's a lot of things that could start going on, but at the minute they don't seem to really give any of them enough attention or teeth to actually make them worthwhile, so no one ever bothers playing them at all.
Perfect game out of the box is Blitz Bowl, apparently. Only thing needed was the rest of the teams.
Yeah, I mean that would have been nice to see. The one thing that annoyed me, and they couldn't really have done that with Blitz Bowl, is that they didn't use the stat cards from the players, so they had to go through some process to convert them into the Blitz Bowl player cards. So you couldn't just take a Lizardman team and take their cards and play them. Unless somebody's converted them already, you couldn't do that. But anyway.
So what we need now, really, and I guess the whole world needs this, is the opportunity to play some actual games, physical games, because the digital game is starting to pale a little bit for me. I worry a little bit for Underworlds at the moment. I have to say I've been thinking about this, and I it's not a good time to be making these sorts of games because people can't play them, and the buy-in is going to drift off. So I hope that we can get some physical games soon, and I don't know how tournaments are going to get going, but
we are definitely seeing a drop off in our numbers. There's definitely a much lower take up, and I wonder if maybe 40k is partially to blame there, because the whole 40k hype train has come along and smashed everything out of the water.
Well, true. I mean, that's going to be hard to play too, isn't it? I mean, the events and things.
Yeah.
But I guess you could play that with a friend and be less likely to be breaking lockdown rules.
Not being able to play a game has not ever stopped a nerd buying his favourite 40k or AOS army.
That is true. That is true.
So
maybe I'm worried over nothing. I suppose it's a bit more niche, this game. And it kind of needs new fresh blood in.
Yeah, there is that.
So I really hope that we get some new cards soon. That will help, as Andrew just said, and then interest gets going again, and people can start meeting up to play. I mean, I'm missing just meeting Pete. Just missing him so much.
Yeah, I am definitely. Whilst the TTS games, they sort of scratch a bit of an itch. They kind of. It's the methadone to our addiction. It's not quite the whole thing, but it's just about enough right now. But it kind of almost feels like, to continue the methadone sort of analogy, it kind of feels like we're almost past that point of addiction, and if we stop doing TTS, we might not miss it quite so much anymore. So we need to get back in there and get in a full.
Just play longboard and you're safe from the virus. That's true.
Yeah.
Release longer boards so you have more distance.
Like it,
yeah, I guess everybody could bring 2 sets, couldn't they? And just shout to each other across the way. What are you doing? Okay, I'll move that to there.
You have to start using like letter systems, like Bushwhacker to B6.
Oh, we should totally commentate on that.
Oscorn to C for 15.
Yeah.
But yeah, I want to get back into the game. Grandpa Nogue says 40 watt. I'm not sure what 40 watt he means.
40k.
Oh, 40, yes, sorry, yes, good point, yes. Sorry, yeah. I mean, I'll be honest, I mean, we've only played about 2 or 3 games 40k ever, but I do look at those models and think they are quite nice.
Yeah. And we're getting into Necromunda on the quiet. We've I don't think possibly Nerdy Robbed in tonight, but we've been stoking up the Necromunda fires this week with Forge World being open. That's kind of re-piqued our curiosity. Yes. So there will be new stuff coming as soon as Pete and I can meet without breaking the rules.
Yeah, I mean, it's tricky. I mean, maybe we'll just have to start doing it. We'll have to have masks on.
Yeah, well, that'll be fine. Maybe. That'll be fine, and we don't have to do the talking to each other next to each other thing that we do at the beginning. But
I mean,
it's
just Just no tongues. I think is mostly what we need to stick to.
My wife is a stickler for the rules, so it's getting it past her that's the problem.
Well, we'll tell her that we'll stay on opposite sides of the table. What they don't see, they don't hurt them.
Not even going there. Right. So I think we've probably come to an end. There's 19 people watching. They're dropping like flies.
Yeah, I think we've milked this. We've milked this as much as we can.
Someone's come back in.
Just to say, fuck you and the fucking horse you rode in on, just so they can go again.
Well, cheers, guys. Thanks for tuning in. A bit of an extra one. I don't know if we're going to get a game out this week, so we might be a bit behind now.
Well,
it's up at 10, but we'll see how we feel afterwards. And the point whether we should record a game that's already out of date is hard to know. Anyway, but Pete and I will talk about that.
Yeah.
Off camera.
We'll work it out. Whether we maybe we try and get a game in over the weekend or something with some slightly redone decks maybe. We'll see.
Maybe that might work. That worked last week.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Andrew says looking forward to the next Gloomhaven video. Well, I could do those. They're easy to do.
Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll jump on Warhammer Underworlds Online in a minute and play a game.
Well, we could do one of that. We could play one of those.
What now?
Yeah.
What, you want to stream it?
We could do, but let's finish this up and then we might be live in a minute. We'll talk.
Yeah,
Pete and
we'll see.
Talk. My people talk to your people. And we'll sort that out.
So thanks for tuning in, guys and girls. Hope that we. Well, Valentin says his webcam tournament's on Saturday. Good luck with that.
Oh yeah, good luck with that, Valentin. Soon Craig said soon you could film a video of only banned and restricted. You probably could. Only banned and restricted.
Probably already at that point now. Yeah.
Stay safe, everyone. Cheers for the chat. Yes, cheers, Andrew. Happy Thursday. We'll see you all Tuesday.
Yeah, next Tuesday.
Good luck at the weekend, Valentin, and I hope it all goes well with your webcam tournament.
And there'll still be a battle report coming out this Friday for everyone. Don't worry, we're not that far behind yet.
No, not yet.
So we'll see you soon in the Beast Grave.
Cheers, guys. Bye.